everyone. I am so thrilled. First of all, happy International Women's Day. Every day should be International Women's Day. But what can we do? The men decided to give us one day in the 365, 66 this year, so that we can go and jump around and be happy that, yay, today is Women's Day. But we have more intelligent and important things to discuss. So let's get on with business. So I have 5 filmmakers and myself. So maybe we should do like we do in the normal Q&As with the filmmakers. Just tell us about your film, your name, your film, where are you joining in from, and what is the theme of your film, and so on. And then I keep asking other questions. Who wants to be first? Nobody? Yes, Molly. Okay.
Hello, everybody. It's great to be here. Can you hear me?
Yes,
we
can.
I am connecting from New York, but my film was actually made in Greece. It's about the pollution of the sea. It is a direct experience. It wasn't an idea. It was something that was just hitting me in the face and I couldn't avoid. So I had to do something about it. And the film you will see is one of the things I did about it.
Very interesting. Let me just...
It's a performance.
It's a performance piece, but also it's a performance piece with pieces of garbage, trash that you found on the beach, right?
Yes, I found everything on the beach. I started the collection and I had all these things in my studio, mostly big things. And then a curator asked me to do a live performance at the art fair in Athens just before COVID in 2019. So I decided to do a performance with doing essentially what I was doing in the studio on my own.
Yes, but for a bigger public, for audience.
Yes, well, I did it live, and then I did the film, which is now in the festival. So it's the second iteration. But I don't know if you have any other performance pieces in the festival, but it's kind of, you know, between, it's not really, anyway, it's a performance piece. It's not a documentary. It's, however, the point is to relay the information.
Yeah. No, it was interesting because like I was saying, when we did the interview with Meet the Filmmakers and we were talking about your piece, it's a one-person piece. And we have had a lot of submissions, not necessarily this year, but in previous years as well, by one person, either performance pieces or one-person films. And that's a genre that really intrigues me. And as I am a performer myself, and I do a number of theater pieces that are one woman, I have been thinking that maybe it merits a festival of its own. So let's hear from another person who wants to be... I think Molly had her hand up and then we jumped in. Okay, so maybe we should go to Molly.
Hello, I'm Molly. I'm in Brooklyn, New York right now. My movie is called It's Not You, It's Your Vagina. It's a comedy about two best friends quarantining during the pandemic. And basically they say if they can make a go at more than a friendship, basically he's gay, she's straight. They have sex one night and then like we see what happens the next day. And a lot of silliness ensues.
Interesting. And who else?
Hi, everyone. Pleasure to be here. I'm Anna, and I'm in upstate New York, near the border with Canada. My film is called Valley of Exile, and it's a story of sisterhood set against the backdrop of the war in Syria, shot in a real-life refugee camp in Lebanon.
So we have Sonia and Maya. Shall we toss a coin?
I can do it.
Oh. Sonia will go, okay.
My name is Sonia Hermandorf. At this moment I'm in Rotterdam in Holland, where I shot the film that was selected for the SR Film Festival, which I'm very, very happy and honored with. And the film is about the building of a very one-of-a-kind building built here in Rotterdam. So it's quite a Rotterdam film, but at the same time, I believe also very international, because it's a kind of experimental building, because it's the first public accessible art depot in the world, belonging to the Museum Boijmans van Beuningen, which is here in the city in Rotterdam. The museum is famous for its huge collection from the Middle Ages until very modern Dali, Magritte, but also Rembrandt's. I mean, it's quite an eclectic collection that we have here in Rotterdam. And the specific building is, in a way, the subject of the film. It's an experimental building, and what I wanted to make is also an experimental film about this building. So that's, in very short, the synopsis of this film. It's experimental, and also I wanted to make a kind of adventure-like documentary. So not just an explanatory documentary, but also a form in itself.
Nice, yeah. And Maya.
Hello, ladies.
Hi.
It's March of 8th to all of you. You look beautiful. I'm glad to be here. I'm really, really happy and thrilled to be participant on the Social Relevant Film Festival. I specifically very, very much wanted to get accepted to your festival because I was wondering how it is from the inside. I was reading a lot about you guys, and you do the great job. So I'm really thrilled and honored. Thank you, Nora.
Thank you.
I'm not the director. I'm the producer of the film From Life to Life. It is Georgian film. It was shot in Georgia, but right now I'm Connecticut, very close to New York. And it's about times in 1990s when the Soviet Union just collapsed, and the countries were lost in their own environment, who really didn't know what to do and how to do it. So it's about the doctor and the healthcare system in that period. And it's about a doctor who wants to continue his dedication to his profession, to his responsibilities, but he has to deal with the horrible system, the ruthless transition, and the enormous corruption in the country. So it's about many different little things, about life itself, about all kinds of difficulties at home, personal, social. But I don't know, we wanted to make it a very cross-cultural film who reaches broad audience and hearts of people around the world. So this is very briefly about our film.
Interesting. So now that everyone has had a chance to tell us about their film, I'm seeing that we have 3 narrative films, 1 performance piece, which I'm kind of considering a narrative rather than a documentary, because yes, it's documenting your performance, but you're performing. So by definition, you are an actor, and the moment you have an actor, then it's a narrative. And we have 1 documentary, which is Sonia's film, but it also is built as a suspense. So is it a documentary or is it a narrative in the backdrop of this museum and so on? But at the end of the day, who cares what it is? Is it a documentary? Is it a narrative? Is it this? As long as it gets the audience engaged and as long as it tells a story. So here we are, and maybe we should just go around then. Whoever wants to jump in, I don't want to do Okay, now it's your turn. Now it's your turn. Because we're not that many. So I think we can have a conversation about what it is today in this atmosphere of filmmaking and all that. What it is like to be a female, a woman filmmaker. Who wants to go? Because the reason I'm asking this question is because at one interview, we came to the conclusion that early on in the history of cinema, when Hollywood just started and the silent movies were here and so on, there were many more women entrepreneurs and producers who had a much more active role in Hollywood. And then as the years went by, somehow their positions were limited to the storyboard girl or the secretary or the typist or something like that. And the men took over the important roles of the profession. And then, of course, the huge struggle later, now we are trying to bring in the 50-50 rule. Well, I'm glad to say that in our festival for the past few years, the 50-50 rule has been respected, and not because we are making an effort to do that. We don't go and say, okay, let's remove this male film and bring that female director because we need to keep the 50-50. We don't do that. What we do is we go for the best films. And then at the end, I want to see how many women we have. And invariably, I end up around the 50 number. And I say, if that is the reality of the festival life and the films that are out there coming to us, why can it not be repeated in the real world in Hollywood out there? So the question is, how do you feel as a female filmmaker? And do you find it difficult? Do you find it easy? Do you find it, you can talk about it from here till morning.
I'll just jump in because I think what's interesting about what you're speaking to is not the question about whether or not we exist and that we're out there making our movies, but whether the industry is designed to give opportunities to women and to promote their work and to not only at the financing level, but at the distribution level, as far as, festivals and other, distribution platforms. And I think what's really interesting about what you're saying, Nora, is that you didn't have to give a special treatment in choosing films because they were made by women, but because they were good. And I think that initiative should happen across the board at all levels of our industry. But unfortunately, I don't think that's the reality. And I'm curious to know what the other women on this panel have experienced with that.
Well, I've had the luck in a way to live in a country like Holland, where supposedly the women in the 70s and the 80s have fought so much for women of my generation that as a young woman I didn't feel so much this discrimination of being a woman, or maybe I laughed a little bit about it when people would say, "Oh, you with your beautiful face, you can get anywhere." Then I would, of course, I would get upset and say, "My beautiful face, you don't see how I'm sweating all day long to make this beautiful photograph," or because I started as a photographer, so I was always in the dark room, developing my films. And when everybody was partying, I was there sitting in the dark in my dark room. So, but I wouldn't feel it. I didn't feel this terrible discrimination, and when there was a kind of female discrimination, like with my first film, my first feature documentary that I made, was of all things about the bullfight, about the Spanish bullfight. That's in fact how I met Nora back in the days in Los Angeles when that film was invited. And Nora was there too with her film as an actress. So I'm talking about 93 now. And yes, the men in Spain would look at me and Ellen Couras, who was my DP. At that time, she wasn't that famous as she is now. So we were just these two young women trying to make a documentary. And of course, these guys would look at us saying, "What are you doing here?" And we said, "Well, we're making a film," and we didn't even think that it would be, impossible or to trespass any borders. We merely laughed at it. So in that sense, maybe because you're young and you think I can go through all these walls, you just take chances that maybe now or nowadays, maybe it's different. But always when people said to me, how can a woman like you have made such a good film about a male subject? I would always say, well, and male people also make films about female subjects. So what's the
They
difference,
don't do it very good.
And
No.
it's not a typical female gaze that I put on the subject. I made the gaze as an artist, as a human person, as a human being, So yes, in that sense, probably I have been fighting without even really knowing it so much, or of course knowing it, but not trying to say I'm a woman and that's why I'm going to make a film, but just I'm a woman and I also make films.
Yeah.
That's in any case what my point, my standpoint has always been. And of course, yeah, you notice discrimination, and male people who are trying to step on you. And also here in Holland, there's a big thing now going on the Dutch television also, of female presentators, present women who present television programs, who now they're all coming out, big Me Too things in the Dutch TV now. So yeah, probably I have been Me Too'd also a lot, but maybe without really paying so much attention to it or just laughing about it. So I have two sons, and I have tried to raise them in a way, to be bilingual. So be human being, man and woman at the same time, be bi-human.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yes, it's very interesting what you're saying, because a lot of times before we were made aware that there is this discrimination problem, we weren't thinking too much about it. I
No.
personally also, in my career, as a producer, as a film festival organizer, and so on and so forth, we've come across a lot of situations which could today qualify as Me Too's. And I'm not talking about somebody jumping on you and raping you or anything. I'm not going to that extreme. But even like funny things that people say, and they think it's a harmless little remark, but then it's not a harmless little remark. Sometimes there's more to it than that. We would have just laughed off and gone on our way. We weren't paying too much attention to these things. And what was important, to do what we were set out to do. But
That's what I mean. I've been working so much with male, companions, colleagues. This last film that I just made, that you're going hopefully to see next week in New York, when we made the picture of the crew and myself, there were 13 men standing around me, and I was the only woman, and I didn't even think about it when I chose them. I mean, it's just the people that I work with, and that are not, discriminative of me. It's the other way around. They're very proud of me. So it's not that all men are,
yeah,
being discriminative.
yeah, definitely. And then we were forging our way, and now we have been suddenly made aware that such a problem exists. And now, of course, everybody's perception of the problem changed. And when the perception of the problem changes, our approach to it changes as well. And I don't know if it's better that we are now conscious and aware. Maybe it's better, maybe it's not better. I don't know. But it's true that in certain cases, there is definitely an imbalance between you know, if you could hire a woman for the role. And I'm also opposed to going the other way because it's saying, okay, we have to fulfill a quota. I hate that. Like, you know, when as a person, as a casting and as an actor, I run into that all the time. It's like a role that I could very easily have played. No, there is a quota. We need to have one Black actor, one Japanese or Asian actor. We have to have one Native American actor and one Hispanic actor. And I'm like, excuse me, this is a part that I can also play, but I don't fall into any of those categories. So what does that mean? I can never get cast?
Mhm.
It's the backlash. It's the backlash from they trying to fix everything now, and they get very sort of dismissive of women who says, "Oh, he made me feel uncomfortable." Really, deal with it. You know, like it goes to the other extreme. I mean, come on now. You know, he made me feel uncomfortable. Oh, okay. So
Yeah,
anyway,
you
I
can also
luckily,
make him feel uncomfortable.
luckily
And
I don't.
I think, sorry
I
to,
don't, sorry, I don't have to deal with Hollywood and distribution and all that. I'm basically a one-woman show, and I have male excellent collaborators, my editor and the music person. And I guess I have been a little naive in my life. I wasn't really aware of discrimination. I have a very, very strong mother. She's a sculptor. She very serious. She's still having exhibitions. And but I do remember one thing when I graduated from graduate school at Columbia. I went up. I was very interested in photography, news photography, and I went up to the New York Times to ask for a job as a photographer. And I remember the photo editor was a very tall man, and he literally laughed at me. He said, "Really, you want a job to run to the here to the courtrooms and this and that with your camera?" Ha 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 ha. That was the approach. But this was 1967, mind you. Anyway, I don't pay attention to it, and I think it was in the previous panel that somebody said we should do away with borders. And I think we should do away with borders and with genders. Gender, you know, I am this, I am that, I am the other. Come on, enough already. We are people,
Yeah.
we are artists, and we work, and that's all that matters. The result is what matters.
Yeah, that's very interesting point that you are raising, because in order for people to impose their gender difference, now we have created even more gender differences.
Exactly. Cis and that and this and the other.
And
Come on.
he and it and please call me Your Majesty. I want to be called Your Majesty. And you know, it's like, okay, all right. It's like, okay, with all due respect to everybody's wishes, but this creates even more divisions.
It does. It
Instead of
does.
saying we are all
I would like all of you to
I have
refer to
to
me as
put
your
a
majesty.
sign here, you know. I have to
I'm
put a
sorry,
sign.
Molly. Molly
I'm
wants
just saying, I would like to, I have just discovered my gender as your majesty, so I would enjoy for the rest of you to refer to me as that from now. That does sound very fun, you have to admit.
the,
Your Majesty sounds
Your
amazing.
Majesty
Fun.
one, right? Isn't it?
It sounds really
I
fun.
love that. I love the Your Majesty one.
Throw that in. Sorry, I
And
interrupted.
you can do it Your Madge for short.
We will call you now. We will call you that way now.
Okay, thanks.
Plus, I have my hairstyle like the queen now, so it's fine. Right. Yes. I mean, it's interesting because, yes, if some big shot guy, a big bellied white man is sitting in Hollywood and he has to sign the check, that makes a difference. But if all of us are not dependent on that, I don't think any of us are waiting here for the big bellied bald guy to sign the check for us. We are all out there doing our thing, you know? But it's true that a lot of women would like to have the recognition that Hollywood gives, Oscars and all that, you know, all sorts of things. And of course, let's not forget the paycheck that comes with it, instead of you having to self-fund constantly. All of these are realities that we have to deal with. And that is what we need to all kind of fight against, and get into the boards, get into these places of the decision makers, so that you can also affect the destinies of those women who have something interesting to say. But in order to say that, they cannot do it with an iPhone and a handheld camera. They need a bigger crew and a bigger funding and a bigger whatever platform. And they are dependent on Hollywood, which is run in a certain way. So if we go back to that, they are, you know, there are constraints.
Yeah, I wanted to pick. Sorry, okay,
Yeah.
this is hard to do. Zoom is so I can't anymore. I just wanted to piggyback on something Nora was saying about, well, a couple things. One is that, like, I'm so new to filmmaking, but I have more experience in acting and stand-up, and I definitely have experienced like horrific sexism with that. I mean, what you were saying about just like little things that are done that are not overt. I remember I was doing some crappy non-union movie probably like 6 or so years ago, maybe a little more. And this guy was like, the director didn't even feed us the whole day. He was just not. And then like we ended up going to a vending machine or whatever. And I had a girl who was playing my daughter. So there was this young girl there, maybe she was like 9 or 10, and he was essentially like making jokes about us being like fat for like having the audacity of wanting to eat during a 24-hour period. And I almost walked out because I was like, I don't care about me, but I was like, there's a kid here. Like, you were saying that in front of a child who's a child actor who's really susceptible to this. And I ended up doing it, but I was like, and yeah, in comedy too, I've been doing it for like 9 years, and I will say it has gotten a lot better. Like, even it's been almost a decade ago, there were barely any women I would see anywhere. And now it seems pretty even. So I will say, I think a lot of stuff has gotten a lot better. And also just talking about quotas, I also produce comedy and comedy shows. And whenever we have a lineup, we're always as diverse as humanly possible, but it's not like Nora was saying, we just want to get the best people. Like, it's never about like, we have to fill this specific, and sometimes it's not as diverse as you want it to be because it's just scheduling and whatever. But yeah, I think it's just so important to just get the best people, and the best people usually are going to be an eclectic group because you want different points of view. You want, and it's like boring to always have the same thing. So
But
yeah, I just want
what I would like to say is that it's a lot about the stereotype, like the big belly guy or the this and that. But unpleasant people can be women or men. You know, there are
Totally.
also very, very unpleasant women that I would not like to work with. You know, and can be also very rotten in their attitude. You know, towards anyone. So of course, yeah, there is the male female thing, which is true, and I would say just try to stay out of it. Or what you're also saying, Nora, is try to be more in the decision places, huh? But I never felt really from the beginning already adversive towards men. But of course, I feel proud when, for instance, this same cinematographer, Ellen Kuras, that did my film 30 years ago, she was the first female member of the American Society of Cinematographers. Of course, then I'm very happy because then it's a proof that there are not so many females in in these kind of associations. So in that sense, yeah, it's not that I think, oh, it has nothing to do with me. No, we have to be pioneers, and and yeah, I've always tried to say that we are humans and not male or female or whatever you want to address yourself. You know, even Her Majesty or His Majesty is a human being in the end. You know,
At the
we all
end,
die in the end.
this is
So, but it's
interesting.
hard.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting what you're saying, because is it the way we are conditioned? And to answer that, I have one of our male attendees here who is a filmmaker, but he is not allowed in to show his face because we are chadoring him. I could, because this is the women's
Reverse discrimination.
yeah, but he has a very interesting question, and it's a question for everyone. Do you think the education system does not encourage young women to pursue a career in the film industry? So does anyone want to answer this?
Well, it depends on the country too.
Yeah, definitely. It depends on the country. But I think there was or has been at some point a certain degree, depending on where you grew up and where you were educated and all that, a certain degree of believing that, okay, girls should play with dolls, guys should play with planes and trains and automobiles or whatever, and girls should go into sewing school. And guys should go and edit movies. And, it's like you are conditioned. And then later on, we try to break out of that conditioning. But maybe the education system does play a role. I don't know. What is anybody else's take on that? Maya,
Can I?
yes.
Yes, I cannot agree more to all the ladies, to Molly and Sonia, Eleni. I absolutely agree with your opinions, guys, because this is true. I mean, everything changed lately. It's much better than it used to be. We see it, especially on the film business, that a lot of women are coming forth, and there are so many new directors, emerging directors, even the directors who are for several years in the business, and they are getting more and more popular to broader audience. So this is great. And I absolutely agree with Sonia and Eleni about the extremes, because it's getting ridiculous. Because the Me Too movement, which in at the beginning stage, the idea was somehow the right thing. The directions went totally to disaster. I mean, it should be something like we have to respect each other on the first place, and be human beings, and then talk about our roles on this planet. So I think it's we have to know the golden balance in everything, I guess. And the second opinion, what I just wanted to express is about the country where I originally come from, in Georgia, because at the present time, I think there are more female filmmakers, which are really very, very successful on international panel than male filmmakers. I don't know why it happened, but this is the fact. And when I was growing up, and even early in the 60s, we had big, very influential film directors who were even Oscar nominees during the Soviet times. And the country plays a huge role. Although it's a country in Eastern Europe, closer to the Europe and Asia border, the female dominance was always visible, and it wasn't somehow some discrimination. I didn't grow up in this situation, but for instance, the American story tells us different, because the female couldn't even vote in the mid-century, which is unheard of for countries like mine, for example. And I'm very glad that things are changing around the world. It's especially in US, because I think it was tougher here than in many European countries, and even Eastern European countries. And what's most important for me, and what I'm observing in the film since, I don't know, since my childhood, the female perspective is usually different, and it's very unique. And how they shape the stories and tell their stories and make the films, it's beautiful. I cannot say I always guess that it's a film comes from film director, but most of the time I guess, because they're very sensitive in certain things. And I'm very glad. I'm always trying to support all the newcomers filmmakers, and education is also very important and encouraging as well.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah,
I really think it's how you educate your boys also as a mother, you know. I mean,
absolutely.
all these boys come from a mother, right? So, I mean, if you are a mother and you say to your daughter, please clean up the toilet, and the boy can sit at the table and eat, yeah, what do you think he will do later on? He will think he only sits at the table and can eat, you know. So yeah, you have to teach the boys also that they have to clean the toilet and they have to cook and they have to do their
course.
laundry. And so I think it's not only the education in the schools, but also the education at home. I mean, why do all these guys go to war? I mean, apparently they're at the end the mothers and the daughters are grieving, but yeah, I mean it's a chain, you know, it's an ongoing chain. So I think it also starts with how you educate your children at home,
Totally.
and how they then educate their other fellow children in the schools or in the kindergarten or wherever, you know.
Yeah. It's interesting because Eleni.
Yes, I just want to say that in terms of education, things are going backward. At least in this country, we are banning books. Teachers can go to jail for mentioning gender issues. I mean, you know, of course, education is important. And when I went to school, the girls went to sewing and the boys went to athletics. And things have changed in Greece since then. But in this country, things are going backwards. And, you know, it depends whether we go forward or backward on this election.
Wow, that's another nightmare. Oh, I don't want to go into that because otherwise, yeah.
No, it's not, yeah.
But
But things are not going well because, of course, men are threatened with this whole thing. You know, they cannot grab whomever they want, etc., etc. They are threatened, and therefore there is a backlash.
yeah, yeah. But it's interesting what Maya is saying because, yes, there are a lot of interesting Georgian women filmmakers. And I also have noticed that there are a lot of interesting Middle Eastern filmmakers, women filmmakers, Lebanese, Palestinian, and you know, it's like many more, especially Palestinian filmmakers. If you put a list, there are so many women filmmakers, and then these are
And Iranian.
and Iranian and Iranian in Iran as well. There are so many women filmmakers that are on the equal footing of all the incredible Iranian male filmmakers that we know of and who are making a big name, have made a big name for themselves internationally. And it's very contradictory because the position of women in the Middle East and in Iran and in Georgia and in Caucasus and in general in countries like that, you feel like, okay, in society, it's far from being equal, the women and the men. But in filmmaking, somehow women have been able to impose themselves and go forward. Whereas in America, it's like supposed to be equality and gender and so on and so forth in the real society. But in Hollywood and in filmmaking business, it's not.
Well,
So
I think
we have to
just
try to be role models, you know. We have to. I mean, I'm not in Hollywood, and I'm also like Eleni. I'm a one woman show author. I, but you know, you can only do what you can do from where you are. You know, you can't take the whole burden of the whole world on your shoulders. I cannot
no,
think about Hollywood, and Hollywood cannot take care of me. You know, so.
absolutely not. That was
Uh,
going to say. It's
So we have to be our own role models and show the people around us with what we make, with what we tell, what we show, uh, what we like, huh? To encourage. That's the only thing you can do. Encourage other people, encourage your way not imposing yourself, because I would never like to impose, you know, what I make. But of course, what I make it for other people to see it. So of course I want to, but it's not so that you can only attract attention by showing things that are going wrong. You can also show the beauty of things, you know. I mean, I remember when I made my first film about bullfighting, everybody was asking me, well, but are you against bullfighting or are you pro bullfighting? And I said, it's about the art of bullfighting. It doesn't matter if I'm pro or against. It's not the point, you know. So sometimes it's more, people always want to see conflicts in films, and I don't always agree with that, you know. So so yeah, we are filmmakers and artists, or and sculptors and actors and producers, but we are also humans. And in fact, with the film that I made now, I looked at the footage that I shot with the eye of people who will live in 100 years' time. And that's how I chose my footage, because I thought it's my duty as a documentary filmmaker to tell things that other people were not aware of or could not be there at that moment that it was happening. So I take footage that was maybe made 100 years ago, and I look at it with my eye at this very moment, and I think, oh, how good that somebody filmed this for me. Not a man or a woman, just somebody filmed it, and now I can use it. And so what I shot and what I used in the film now is also footage that I thought, okay, in 100 years' time, what will people want to see? What is really relevant in 100 years' time, and not at this very moment? So I hope with that people will be able to, in 100 years' time, to look 200 years back through the film that I made now. So there are certain kind of duties that you have as an artist, as a writer, as a journalist, as a photographer, to show what's going on, and not necessarily say what you actually think about it. Just showing is almost enough.
It's very interesting point that you made, because yesterday, when we did the screening in Paris of that film, it's a very symbolic film that talks also about the period of the 90s in the Soviet Union. In this case, it was Armenia, and all this destructuralization of the Soviet system that these people were living in, the uncertainty of what tomorrow brings, and the helplessness of some people in the face of all this changing times and everything. And it was amazing to what extent it sounded. This is a film that we made in 1995, okay? And it was in the Berlin Panorama. So it was amazing how it held true to what's going on in the world today.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's really unbelievable.
Because
And
we always tell the same stories. I mean, history repeats itself all the time.
totally,
You know,
totally.
Can we see the film? Is there a way we can see it,
Well, I
Nora?
am hoping that next year it will be at the socially relevant film festival. So it's yeah, I mean, I normally hate seeing myself on the screen, but in this case, I was watching it because I'm so different now that I was looking at it as if it's somebody else. And the story was so full of symbols, full of symbolism that you can turn around and apply to what's going on. But that desperation, that helplessness, that where is this world going feeling was so powerful that it was like, wow, this is something made so many years ago and it's still holding true today. And there were some questions about, people asked questions about to the filmmaker, and the one woman asked him, so how do you think this is whole world, how do you think this is all going to end? And the filmmaker said, I don't know. I am not a prophet. So, just don't mix me with somebody who can tell the future. My job is to raise questions, he said. Our job as filmmakers is to ask the questions. We don't have the answers.
That's
And
what I mean. That's exactly what I mean. That we are here, we have the tools to show it, and if we're female or male, it doesn't really matter. We have the tools, the opportunities, or we grab the opportunity. We don't impose it.
yeah,
We it's because of our profession and because, and it, with me it started because of curiosity. So everybody has his own reason or her own reason why you started being a filmmaker or an artist or a producer or an actress, because it's something that you carry with you, that you already have in you. So it's your duty, if you're born with a talent, to use it. And if people want to step on you or hold you back, then yeah, you have to fight your way through it.
or you
But
move
not
out
the
of the way.
reason. I'm not a filmmaker because I want to fight to be a filmmaker. I'm a filmmaker because I want to be a filmmaker.
Yeah.
Then the fight is the second thing. It's not the reason to become it.
Let's ask our attendees if they have more questions that they want to ask our panelists. And also, I want to throw in a question before the attendees come in with their questions, is maybe we could each one of us share what made you decide to become a filmmaker? What was the motivation behind it? This might be a big can of worms, but Sonia already touched upon it in a way. So let's hear from the other panelists to see why you decided to express yourself through film.
Well, since nobody is coming in, I will say that I never decided to become a filmmaker. I always wanted, I had the great fortune to be the first student of Fred Friendly, who was the father of documentaries. I don't know if you're aware of him. And I wanted to work on documentaries, but at the time, I was very young. I got married and I couldn't run around with crews. So I became a still photographer instead, which could make a living for me and also was develop my art. And gradually in my later years, I turned to filmmaking finally. But it's a performance. It's not a documentary. It is a documentary in the sense that I am putting out information. My journalism genes are still working. And I do this because I want to disseminate it to a big audience. This is why I'm making a film. And if I had a few more years to be active, I would try to go to my first love, the documentary filmmaking. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But this is how it went for me, from documentaries to still to fine art, and back to through fine art to performance and filmmaking.
Nice. So, anyone else wants to share why? Yes, Maya, Molly, Anna.
Only
I
one.
mean, this is Zoom. Okay. I basically the pandemic, I was just going insane, and my friend and I, who's my co-star in the movie and the only other actor in the movie, we're always talking about making something. We met doing a production of Equus. I don't know if anybody knows that play. It's a really weird play. The horses and nudity. It's a really weird show. But he became one of my best friends, and yeah, it had been like a decade since we did that, and we were just always talking about it and never actually making anything. And then the pandemic happened. And I was just like, I just imploded. I was like, I need to make something creative. I'm going nuts. I'm doing stand up on Zoom. This is terrible. Like, I needed to do something. So I wrote this script and I had basically no budget. We shot it in my apartment. I had one person behind the camera. And I had like my friend edit it. It was a very small group. And I was really proud of the script. I was like, this is really funny. And it had moments of, some like serious issues in it that I thought weren't talked about a lot. Also, I love I made an LGBTQ movie and like I have rainbows around me right now. Um, but yeah, so I'm so excited to be part of this festival, and I'm happy it's getting into stuff. But yeah, I think if the pandemic hadn't have happened, I don't know if I would have made it. So now I'm inspired to make more stuff.
Yeah. And who else?
Yeah, I mean, I have been filmmaking for over 20 years now. I was in fine arts when I was younger, and my background is Iranian. So I think there's like kind of the artisticness in my cultural background. Yeah, I was always very inspired by a lot of Iranian films when I was younger. I made a feature documentary in Iran in my early 20s, and fast forward 20 years, and I'm still at the game. And it's been really challenging, but at the same time, I think those of us who have this sort of gravitation or pull towards the arts, we don't really know how to do anything else. I never excelled in like math or science, to my parents' disappointment, but at the same time, artists are essential, filmmakers are essential. And I've been really lucky to be able to tell stories in a part of the world that, most people don't often get to see. So I think that's a big part of my mission now, is to just keep telling stories about women and people who are often misrepresented in media and in cinema. And I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of Lebanese women, Syrian, Palestinian women, kind of working between borders, being sort of my background being Iranian, but also living in Lebanon for over 10 years when I was making this film. So yeah, it's been quite a journey. And I also very much appreciate films that you don't normally see, or that, like the sort of the hidden gem films that, that it was a labor of love, and that the filmmakers really poured their hearts into it. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing everybody's work.
Yeah, that's the kind of films we like at socially relevant film festivals, that were made because somebody really fought for it, not because they had unlimited funds and they could make, all sorts of special effects and explosions and stuff like that. And anybody else? Because I have a question again from someone, from another male, no, the same male, who's really probing into our questions. Okay, so Nabil again asking, question for everyone. As a woman filmmaker who fights for women's rights in the industry, do you think this fight takes away from the other questions you might have to raise in your films? For example, if you're from a visible minority or in the LGBTQ community, etc., do you get less opportunities to talk about what you really want to talk because you're a woman? So suddenly you feel like you have to talk about that aspect instead of general things.
I mean, I think it's important as women to think about our intersectionality, to think about, not only our gender, but any other identities that we might, intersect with. I'm a woman, but I'm also Middle Eastern. I'm also Iranian, and I'm also somebody who has lived in both the Middle East and North America. And I think that only gives our filmmaking more depth. And that gives us a very important point of view that helps in our storytelling. So I think if you are LGBTQ and a woman, I would think that would be something that you would be interested in exploring, but maybe not. I think every person has their own ideas and perspectives. But I think the more we kind of look at our different sort of lived experiences in our work and think about those experiences, the more we can really create impactful and films that resonate and films that are authentic.
Nice. Okay. I have a question from Eleni. She was asking earlier, and maybe this is something everybody else wants to know, so I might as well take this opportunity. To what time the webinar is on? We're going to close after I treat this question. So a couple of more minutes because we started late. So the closing night is by invitation only. We're not allowed to sell tickets because it's at the National Arts Club. We definitely won't be selling tickets at the door, but there is a way of getting an invitation. If it's a general audience invitation, then the, what was it called? Elite Trio ticket, which gives you an invitation to the opening and the closing and 3 film tickets, is a way to get a ticket invitation to closing night, or get the full access pass, which allows you to see everything, including an invitation to closing night. However, the filmmakers who are screening on that night, you each have 4 invitations. As there are short films, there are only 4. For feature films, we have 6 invitations. But if you have important guests that you need to invite, maybe you can let me know. And if there are not too many, because we have a limited number at the National Arts Club, then we will put them on the list. So I hope this answers your question. And the
Thank you.
RSVP I was referring to was the list, the form that we send along with all the RSVPs, all the different events that
Way back. But,
way back.
yeah, I don't remember who is on that list anymore.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll figure it out. Thank
Right.
you, Nora. Thank you.
Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for such an amazing. We were supposed to have Katie Chambers from NYWIFT, New York Women in Film and Television, with us on this webinar. They are New York Women in Film and Television is a partner organization that we work with, and I'm a member of Women in, at NYWIFT. But unfortunately, an unexpected event came up because they have the Muse Awards coming up very soon. And she was apologizing, saying she won't be able to attend. Another new thing has come up. We thought we were not going to have the Women Film Critics Circle Award this year. And I just found out that we will have it, but they always focus on narratives and shorts. So if you have a narrative short film, that is one of the contenders. It will be running for the Women Film Critics Circle Award. And we'll find that out on closing night. They will be watching, viewing, and voting, and then letting us know. So there we go. If anyone wants to make one last earth-shattering remark, considering that today is International Women's Day, and this is all the female filmmakers of SRFF 2024, please.
Well,
Yes.
I just received a message from Milano because the Depot film has just been screened at the Milano International Film and Design Film Festival. And it's in competition for the Architecture Film Award. And it was just shown, so I thought, well, that's nice to have 2 girlfriends in Milano sending me that the screening went nice.
Yes,
in Milano.
report back for you. Nice.
So that's just
Great.
because I'm happy to hear that at least there was a screening, so that nothing went wrong with the with
Yes,
the
by
image.
the way, if you are expecting to hear about DCPs and things and to see how it's going, don't worry, the cinema is really thorough. They are checking everything. If you
But-
didn't hear by now, it means that everything's okay.
Okay.
And if there is a problem, they definitely let us know.
Yeah, but it was nice to hear that the film was actually
Went fine.
subtitled into Italian, and it just screened just a few minutes ago. So we're international ladies.
And who else wants to make a final remark before?
And very nice to meet you all. I hope to see you all in New York.
Yes.
Very-
Yeah.
Well,
Maya
we-
will be there, Eleni will be there, Anna is coming, Sonia is coming, and Molly is there. So we're
Mhm.
all going to be there in person. Yay!
Okay. So
Thank you
Great.
so much for having us and for hosting this wonderful talk. It's great meeting everybody. And yeah, I can't wait to see everyone's films next week.
Thank you so much. All the
Thank
best, everyone. Keep making
Thank
you.
you,
great
Nora.
movies. Bye and
Thank
happy
you.
International
You
Women's
so-
Day.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.